Tonight, a major loss for Trump, a federal appeals court ruling unanimously that the former president is not immune from prosecution for alleged crimes he committed in office to overturn the 2020 election. Now, this is a crucial ruling. It strikes down the entire heart of Trump's defense in the Department of Justice's January 6th case. Trump, for his part, is slamming the, quote, nation-destroying ruling, warning that it will cause grave harm to America and the presidency. It is a monumental decision, because it could have huge legal and political implications. So we're going to talk about how this could affect the entire timeline now that this ruling has come down, whether he could be convicted before Election Day. Crucial questions in a moment. I want to bring in out front now, though, the former Trump White House attorney, Ty Cobb. And Ty, of course, you signed that amicus brief in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals arguing against Trump's claims of immunity. And obviously, that is the way that this three-judge panel ruled, unanimously saying that Trump does not have immunity. I know you've had a chance to read through it. What stands out the most to you?
All right, people, welcome back to Dr. John Podcast. 2 documented viral moments from Trump's public appearances, professionally reported by Atlanta Black Star, raise serious questions about the physical and cognitive state of the sitting president. The footage contradicts Trump's carefully cultivated image of superhuman energy and sharpness, with the documented reality suggesting something very different from the brand he spent his career building. The first moment involves Trump stepping off Air Force One and looking, according to multiple observers who were quoted in the professional coverage, like death warmed over. We're talking about documented observations of exhaustion, disorientation, being short of breath. These aren't political opponents making these observations. These are people who were there, who saw what they saw, and who are being quoted in mainstream professional reporting. And the fact that this moment came just before the Kennedy Center event.
I think what stands out the most to me is how comprehensive and exhaustive the opinion is with regard to American history and the evolution of constitutional law back to Marbury versus Madison. I think we discussed last week that I didn't think people should be overly concerned about a 3-week delay, but if we got into late this week, there might be cause for concern with regard to delay. I think 28 days to an opinion of this magnitude and gravity. I wish it had been sooner, but at the same time, I can see now why it was not, because this is an epic opinion. This is an opinion, if it's the last word on these issues, as it may be, depending on what the Supreme Court does, will be studied in law schools for the next 120 years, along with other key constitutional opinions, such as Marbury versus Madison. I think the unanimity of the 3 judges and the per curiam nature of the opinion is a very, very important fact. It will
makes the sequence even more significant. The second moment, and this is the one that has truly gone viral, involves Trump at the Kennedy Center delivering what has been described as a bizarre rant featuring strange faces, sound effects, and off-script theatrics. People watching the clip zoomed in on his appearance and started asking a question that no American should have to ask about a sitting president. They questioned whether he looks like he doesn't know where he is. The clip went viral for all the wrong reasons, generating exactly the kind of attention that Trump's team is presumably desperate to avoid. Let me walk you through exactly what the professional reporting says, because the details are what make this so devastating. Atlanta Black Star specifically documented that Trump's Kennedy Center rant went viral with strange faces, sound effects, and off-script theatrics.
Well, I think it already has negated the likelihood of en banc review by the full court of the D.C. Circuit. And I think that it will give the Supreme Court some pause, both because it gets these issues right, and it doesn't, while it's compelling, historic, monumental, it doesn't sweep too broadly. They only decided the few issues that they needed to decide. That they resolved the jurisdictional issue wisely in light of the constitutional issues posed by the double jeopardy clause and impeachment. Which, while not explicit constitutional grants of immunity, as suggested, are required under Middle and Asphalt, still clearly satisfy the important nature of why they had to resolve it. They also limited it to this indictment, this president, these circumstances. They didn't speak for future presidents. They didn't speak for future possible indictments. They focused solely on this, and it's clear that this judgment is limited to that.
The coverage specifically noted that people zoomed in on his appearance and questioned whether he looks like he doesn't know where he is. The clip specifically went viral for all the wrong reasons. This isn't some obscure blog making these claims. This is mainstream professional reporting, applying established journalistic standards. And here's what makes the Kennedy Center moment even more concerning. It didn't happen in isolation. It was preceded by the Air Force One moment where Trump appeared exhausted and disoriented. The same professional outlet documented that observers said he looked like death warmed over. They documented that he appeared short of breath. They documented that he seemed disoriented. And then, just a short time later, he's at the Kennedy Center delivering a bizarre rant that has people questioning whether he knows where he is.
So I know in that sense you're saying the Supreme Court may not even take it up. What about the argument, and I mentioned it briefly introducing you, but that Trump himself made today, saying the decision would, quote, terribly injure the presidency and, in fact, the United States itself. All future presidents would be targets for political retribution. American democracy would be at risk. What's your response to such sweeping terminology?
Well, I do believe that if Trump is elected, that President Biden could be in danger of retribution, but I don't believe there's a legal basis for it, and I don't think it will go very far. The 44 presidents that preceded President Trump did not waste a second, I think, debating whether they should commit an intentional criminal act. So I don't really buy that argument. History doesn't suggest that it's true. Trump also claimed that the Supreme Court took away his immunity. That was immunity that is nowhere promised to anybody, and nobody since Nixon has believed that presidents are above criminal process. So I think everything he said today is rhetoric designed for his base, red meat.
Think about what that sequence represents. It's not just one isolated incident that could be explained away as a bad day or a fluke. It's two documented incidents in close succession that together suggest a pattern of concerning behavior. The physical exhaustion documented on Air Force One, followed by the behavioral concerns documented at the Kennedy Center, creates a comprehensive picture that's hard to dismiss as just random occurrences. Now, I want to be very clear about something here. This isn't about political bias. This isn't about trying to take down Trump for partisan reasons. This is about documented professional reporting on the public behavior of the President of the United States. When a sitting president generates viral clips featuring strange faces and sound effects, when observers are questioning whether he knows where he is,
and none of it's true.
All right, Ty Cobb, thank you very much. As always, we appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Aaron.
All right, so Ryan Goodman's here with me, co-editor-in-chief of Just Security, and Ankush Kadori, the former federal prosecutor who wrote an article in New York Magazine titled, "What Happens Exactly If Trump is Sentenced to Prison?" So, Ryan, listening to Ty talking about the argument here that was given by the judges today, the three judges, your team looked at the potential timeline now that we have this ruling on immunity, and here it comes on this Tuesday in February. What does this mean in terms of whether Trump's case itself, that this particular trial on January 6th concludes before Election Day?
So there's now a pretty good likelihood it will conclude before Election Day. We'll have a verdict. And the court sets this up in motion by saying that by Monday, February 12th, Trump has to basically petition the Supreme Court. They force his hand. And then the court gets to decide whether or not they want to take cert.
When people who see him stepping off Air Force One say he looks like death warmed over and short of breath, those are legitimate concerns that deserve serious analysis. And the response from Trump's defenders is predictable. They'll say the Kennedy Center moments reflect specific event considerations. They'll argue that Air Force One stepping off moments sometimes reflect schedule considerations. They'll claim that observer characterizations involve perspective considerations. They'll insist that media analysis involves perspectives that can be dismissed. And look, those are fair points to consider. Any public appearance can be interpreted in different ways. Any video clip can be taken out of context. Any observer can have a bias. But here's the problem with that defensive framing. When you have multiple documented incidents, when you have professional reporting from mainstream outlets, when you have observers being quoted directly saying things like death warmed over and short of breath, you're not dealing with abstract perspectives anymore. You're dealing with documented reality. And the reality here is that two separate viral moments, professionally documented and reported, have raised serious questions about presidential fitness that can't just be dismissed as media bias. And here's where this gets really interesting from a political perspective. The documented Atlanta Black Star coverage isn't an isolated phenomenon. It's part of a broader pattern of coverage and concern that has been building for some time. We've seen documented reports from top ex-Trump officials warning of palpable cognitive decline. We've seen coverage of Trump's late-night social media rants being described as desperate attempts to distract. We've seen reporting on Oval Office meltdowns that have fueled fears about his mental state. We've seen viral moments of speech pauses and strange behavior at public events. All of these documented incidents together create a comprehensive pattern that's becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. It's not just one video. It's not just one observer. It's a cumulative body of evidence that suggests a president who is struggling with the demands of the office in ways that have serious implications for governance and constitutional accountability. The specific sequence of the Air Force One moment followed by the Kennedy Center moment is particularly revealing because it combines two different types of concern. The physical concerns documented when Trump stepped off Air Force One, the exhaustion, the shortness of breath, the look of being death warmed over, those are physical fitness concerns. The behavioral concerns documented at the Kennedy Center, the strange faces, the sound effects, the questioning of whether he knows where he is, those are cognitive concerns. Together, they represent a comprehensive set of issues that go beyond any single isolated incident. And the fact that the Air Force One moment came right before the Kennedy Center clip makes the sequence even more significant. It wasn't like these were two unrelated events separated by weeks or months. They happened in close succession, creating a documented sequential pattern that's hard to explain away as just a bad day. If you're exhausted and disoriented getting off the plane, and then you're giving a bizarre performance at the Kennedy Center, that suggests something more concerning than just being tired. The documented characterization of Trump looking like death warmed over is particularly striking. That's a phrase that observers used, not a political opponent, not a media commentator, but people who were there and who saw what they saw. And the documented shortness of breath observation adds another layer of concern. When you combine physical exhaustion with shortness of breath, you're looking at potential health issues that go beyond just being tired. And then there's the Kennedy Center clip itself. The strange faces, the sound effects, the off-script theaters, all of this behavior was documented by professional reporting. And the most concerning part is the observer characterization questioning whether Trump looks like he doesn't know where he is. That's not a subtle concern. That's a direct question about cognitive awareness in a public setting. When people who are watching a sitting president perform at a major event are asking whether he knows where he is, that's a serious indicator that something is wrong. Let's dive deeper into these specific documented moments and what they actually represent in terms of presidential fitness analysis. Because I want you to understand that we're not just talking about a few isolated clips that can be dismissed as out of context. We're talking about a comprehensive documentation landscape that has been professionally reported and that raises fundamental questions about whether the president is capable of performing his duties. The Atlanta Black Star coverage of the Kennedy Center moment is particularly detailed. They documented that the rant went viral specifically because of the strange faces Trump was making. They documented that the sound effects he produced were notable enough to be reported. They documented that he went off script in ways that observers found concerning. And they documented that people zoomed in on his appearance and questioned whether he looks like he doesn't know where he is. This isn't just one observer making a questionable claim. This is a pattern of documented observations that have been professionally reported. And let's think about what it means for a sitting president to have people questioning whether he knows where he is during a public event. The presidency is an office that demands constant awareness, constant engagement, constant ability to process information and respond appropriately. If observers are questioning whether the president knows where he is, that suggests a level of disorientation that goes far beyond just being tired or having a bad day. It suggests a cognitive issue that has serious implications for the president's ability to perform the duties of the office. The Air Force One coverage is equally concerning. Observers specifically said Trump looked like death warmed over. That's not a phrase that people use lightly. It suggests someone who looks seriously unwell, someone whose physical appearance is so concerning that observers feel compelled to use such dramatic language. And the documented shortness of breath observation adds another layer of concern. Physical exhaustion combined with breathing issues suggests potential health problems that go beyond just fatigue. And the sequence is crucial here. The Air Force One moment didn't happen in isolation. It came right before the Kennedy Center clip. So you have documented physical exhaustion, documented shortness of breath, documented disorientation, all happening before a documented bizarre public performance that included strange faces, sound effects, off-script theatrics, and observers questioning whether the president knows where he is. That sequence represents a documented cascade of concerning behavior that's extremely difficult to explain away. Now, I want to connect this to the broader context of what we've been seeing from Trump in terms of public appearances and behavior. We've documented previous coverage of top ex-Trump officials warning of palpable cognitive decline. We've documented coverage of Trump's late-night social media rants that have been described as desperate attempts to distract. We've documented reporting on Oval Office meltdowns that have fueled fears about his mental state. We've documented viral moments of speech pauses and strange behavior at public events. All of these documented incidents together create a comprehensive pattern that's becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The Kennedy Center clip and the Air Force One moment are not isolated incidents. They're part of a broader documented pattern of concerning public behavior that has been professionally reported over time. And when you put all of these pieces together, you start to see a picture that's genuinely alarming. Let me walk you through some of the specific documented concerns that have been reported previously. We've seen documented reports from Tykov about significant cognitive decline. We've seen documented reports from Stephanie Grisham about Trump mentally slipping. We've seen documented reports from Dr. Vin Gupta about a worrying trend line in Trump's cognitive function. We've seen documented reports from a Cornell neurologist about accelerating cognitive decline, with specific observations about strange gait, words he can't finish, and dropping complexity of language. All of these concerns are directly relevant to what we're seeing in the Kennedy Center and Air Force One clips. The strange faces and sound effects documented at the Kennedy Center align with the concerns about dropping complexity of language and strange behavior. The questioning about whether Trump knows where he is aligns with concerns about cognitive decline. The physical exhaustion and shortness of breath documented on Air Force One align with broader concerns about physical fitness. And the documented sequence of these moments matters too. It's not like these are isolated incidents that can be dismissed as one-off occurrences. They're part of a documented pattern that has been building over time. The accumulation of all these documented concerns creates a comprehensive picture that's extremely difficult to dismiss as just media bias or political opposition. Now, I want to be fair here and acknowledge the arguments that Trump's defenders will make. They'll say the Kennedy Center moments reflect specific event considerations. They'll argue that the Air Force One moments reflect schedule considerations. They'll claim that observer characterizations involve perspective considerations, but I'll insist that media analysis involves perspectives that can be dismissed. And those are fair points to consider. Any public appearance can be interpreted in different ways. Any video clip can be taken out of context. Any observer can have a bias. But the problem with those defensive arguments is that they don't account for the cumulative nature of the documented concerns. When you have multiple documented incidents from multiple documented sources over time, you're not dealing with isolated context issues. You're dealing with a pattern that demands serious analysis. And the fact that professional outlets like Atlanta Black Star are documenting these moments and reporting them through established journalistic standards makes the concerns even more serious. The coverage isn't coming from partisan blogs or fringe outlets. It's coming from mainstream professional reporting that applies established journalistic standards. And the observers who are being quoted, the ones saying death warmed over and short of breath and questioning whether Trump knows where he is, those aren't political operatives. They're people who were there and who saw what they saw. Their observations are being documented and reported professionally. The sequence of the Air Force One moment followed by the Kennedy Center clip is particularly significant because it combines two different types of concern that reinforce each other. The physical concerns documented on Air Force One provide context for understanding the behavioral concerns documented at the Kennedy Center. If Trump was exhausted and disoriented getting off the plane, that helps explain why he might have been acting strangely at the Kennedy Center, but it also raises the question of why he was so exhausted and disoriented in the first place. And the observer characterizations are crucial here. When multiple observers are saying that Trump looked like death warmed over, that he was short of breath, that he appeared disoriented, and that he seemed like he didn't know where he was, you're dealing with a consensus of observation that's extremely difficult to dismiss. These aren't just one person's opinion. These are documented observations from multiple sources that have been professionally reported. The fact that these moments went viral is also significant. The viral spread of the Kennedy Center clip wasn't driven by political operatives or media bias. It was driven by people watching the clip and being genuinely concerned by what they saw. People zoomed in on Trump's appearance because something about it struck them as concerning. People started questioning whether he knows where he is because his behavior was so bizarre that it raised that question. The viral spread of the clip represents a genuine public response to concerning presidential behavior, and the reporting on the viral spread is itself significant. Atlanta Black Star didn't just report on the Kennedy Center moment. They reported on the fact that it went viral for all the wrong reasons. The mainstream professional reporting acknowledges that this clip is generating attention not because it's flattering or positive, but because it's concerning and disturbing. That acknowledgement in professional reporting is itself a significant development. Let me now bring all of this together into a comprehensive analysis of what these documented moments mean for Trump's presidency and for American constitutional culture. Because this isn't just about a few viral clips. This is about fundamental questions of presidential fitness and accountability that have serious implications for how our system functions. The documented Atlanta Black Star coverage of the Kennedy Center and Air Force One moments represents a significant development in the ongoing documentation of Trump's public appearance concerns. The professional reporting on these moments, combined with the observer characterizations that have been documented, creates a comprehensive picture that should concern anyone who cares about presidential fitness and constitutional accountability. When observers are saying that Trump looked like death warmed over and was short of breath stepping off Air Force One, that's a documented physical concern. When observers are questioning whether Trump looks like he doesn't know where he is during a Kennedy Center appearance, that's a documented cognitive concern. When both of these documented concerns happen in close succession, creating a documented sequential pattern, that's a documented comprehensive concern that goes beyond any single isolated incident. And the connection to broader documented concerns is crucial. The Kennedy Center and Air Force One moments didn't happen in isolation. They're part of a broader documented pattern that includes reports from top ex-Trump officials warning of cognitive decline, documented analysis from medical professionals expressing concern about Trump's cognitive function, documented reporting on bizarre behavior and erratic statements, and documented concerns about Trump's physical fitness and stamina. All of these documented concerns together create a comprehensive pattern that's extremely difficult to dismiss. The cumulative pattern of these documented concerns matters because it shows that the Kennedy Center and Air Force One moments aren't flukes. They're not just bad days. They're part of an ongoing pattern of concerning behavior that has been documented over time. And when you see that pattern, you have to ask serious questions about whether the president is capable of performing the duties of the office. These are questions that have constitutional implications because the 25th Amendment exists specifically to address situations where a president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of the presidency. Now, I want to address the arguments that Trump's defenders will make because they deserve fair consideration. They'll argue that the Kennedy Center moments reflect specific event considerations beyond pure image concerns. They'll argue that the Air Force One moments reflect specific schedule considerations beyond pure factual analysis. They'll argue that observer characterizations sometimes reflect specific perspective considerations beyond pure substantive concerns. They'll argue that media analysis of presidential appearance sometimes involves specific perspectives beyond pure factual analysis. These are fair points worth considering. Kennedy Center moments do reflect event considerations. Air Force One moments do reflect schedule considerations. Observer characterizations do reflect perspective considerations. Media analysis does involve perspectives. All of these considerations have some validity when evaluating complex questions about presidential appearance. But here's the problem with those defensive arguments. The documented Atlanta Black Star coverage represents documented professional reporting rather than abstract event considerations. The documented people zoomed in on appearance reporting represents documented analytical observation rather than just perspectives. The documented looks like doesn't know where he is. Observer characterization represents documented mainstream reporting on documented observer behavior rather than abstract considerations. The documented Air Force One exhausted and disoriented coverage represents documented professional reporting rather than just perspectives. The documented death warmed over observer characterization represents documented mainstream reporting on documented observer behavior rather than just perspectives. The documented short of breath observer characterization represents documented mainstream reporting rather than just perspectives. The documented sequence of Air Force One moment just before Kennedy Center clip represents documented institutional sequence rather than just perspectives. The documented combined physical and behavioral appearance concerns represent documented analytical framework rather than just perspectives. When you combine all of these documented elements with the broader documented concerns that have been professionally reported over time, you get a comprehensive analytical foundation that deserves serious consideration. The cumulative pattern represents exactly the kind of comprehensive presidential appearance concern that demands substantive engagement from anyone who cares about presidential fitness and constitutional accountability. And the question of who benefits from honest analysis of these documented concerns is also worth considering. American voters benefit from accurate information about presidential public appearance through their political decision-making. American constitutional culture benefits from analysis of accountability dynamics. American journalism benefits when systematic analysis applies established frameworks, regardless of political considerations. American democratic culture benefits when systematic analysis of presidential appearance produces accurate evaluation. Trump personally loses when accurate analysis exposes documented mainstream coverage against his confident appearance messaging. His political operation loses when appearance realities make his exceptional energy narratives harder to maintain through specific accumulated evidence. American information culture benefits when accumulated documentation creates ongoing pressure for accuracy mechanisms. What comes next for all of this going forward? Continued documented public appearance patterns combined with accumulated analytical framework could eventually produce significant political consequences affecting his administration. Future presidential public appearance accountability could potentially be subject to traditional accountability mechanisms through institutional procedures. American constitutional culture could potentially see additional precedents reinforcing accountability standards. Or current patterns could continue indefinitely, with accumulating American constitutional accountability concerns affecting various specific situations during extended periods. And here's the last thing I really want you to take away from today's discussion. American constitutional culture specifically depends on functional public appearance accountability that maintains executive presence through institutional procedures, affecting comprehensive constitutional culture. Previous American presidents of both parties have generally been subject to specific public appearance accountability mechanisms regardless of specific institutional circumstances. The specific Trump pattern of documented Atlanta Black Star Kennedy Center strange faces and sound effects characterization combined with documented Air Force One exhausted and disoriented characterization and documented death warmed over and short restraint of breath observer characterizations represents a fundamental departure from these traditional expectations affecting American constitutional culture through various specific effects. Because at the end of the day, this whole story about Trump's Atlanta Black Star Kennedy Center viral moment and Air Force One exhausted clip fueling new image concerns is really about whether American presidential appearance accountability should be respected through factual, professional analysis or systematically dismissed through confident energy messaging. The documented Atlanta Black Star Kennedy Center viral coverage isn't politically motivated journalism manufactured against Trump. It represents documented professional reporting on documented public behavior applying established journalistic standards regardless of various specific political considerations. The strange faces, sound effects, and off-script theater's characterization isn't politically motivated framing manufactured against him. It represents documented mainstream reporting on documented public behavior regardless of various specific defensive characterizations. The documented people zoomed in on appearance reporting isn't politically motivated coverage manufactured against him. It represents documented analytical observation, regardless of various specific political considerations. The documented looks like, doesn't know where he is. Observer characterization isn't politically motivated framing manufactured against him. It represents documented mainstream reporting on documented observer behavior, regardless of various specific defensive characterizations. The Atlanta Black Star Air Force One exhausted and disoriented coverage isn't politically motivated coverage manufactured against him. It represents documented professional reporting regardless of various specific political considerations. The documented death-warmed-over observer characterization isn't politically motivated commentary manufactured against him. It represents documented mainstream reporting on documented observer characterization, regardless of various specific defensive characterizations. The documented short-of-breath observer characterization isn't politically motivated framing manufactured against him. It represents documented mainstream reporting regardless of various specific political considerations. The documented Air Force One and Kennedy Center moments are not politically motivated framing. They are professionally reported institutional observations that raise legitimate questions about presidential fitness. Their continued existence in the public record creates ongoing constitutional culture pressure that demands substantive engagement rather than dismissive fake news characterizations.